God says a mistake you made is about to be reversed. Let that settle into your spirit. This is not a motivational phrase. This is not positive thinking. This is a divine announcement. Heaven has decided in your favor, and you did not stumble onto this message by accident. You were led here because something shifted in the unseen realm, and this word is your confirmation. There has been a ruling. There has been a verdict. And what you thought was final has just been overturned. The very thing that has kept you up at night, the decision you replay in your mind, the moment you wish you could go back and undo, God says it is about to be reversed. Not covered, not ignored, reversed. There are moments in life when one mistake feels like it rewrote your entire story. A wrong choice, a wrong word, a missed opportunity, a relationship you mishandled, a financial decision that spiraled. And ever since that moment, you have quietly carried the weight of it. You smiled in public, but internally you have wondered, did I ruin everything? You have asked God for forgiveness, but somewhere deep inside, you still feared the consequences were permanent. You assumed the door was shut for good. You assumed the favor was lost. You assumed the calling had been disqualified. But heaven is interrupting that assumption right now. When God says something is about to be reversed, it means the timeline you have accepted is not the timeline He has approved. It means what looked like a permanent loss was only a temporary delay. It means the damage you thought was irreversible is now under divine review. There is a courtroom in heaven, and your case has been brought forward. Evidence has been examined. Accusations have been weighed, and the judge of all the earth has made a decision. The enemy argued that your mistake defined you. The enemy insisted that your error disqualified you. The enemy whispered that you had gone too far this time. But God has silenced those accusations with a single declaration, not final. This is why the urgency in this message matters. Open immediately before 11:59 p.m. That phrase is not about fear. It is about timing. There are moments when heaven marks a transition point. The final minute before midnight represents the closing of one chapter and the birth of another. Spiritually, it is the edge of change. And what God is saying is that before this current cycle closes, something must be understood. Your mistake will not follow you into the next season. The regret that has chained you will not cross over with you. The label that tried to attach itself to your name will expire. You need to hear this clearly. God is not surprised by your mistake. He saw it before it happened. He knew the weakness. He knew the fear. He knew the pressure you were under. And yet He still chose you. The calling on your life was not issued because you were flawless. It was issued because you were chosen. There is a difference. And when heaven decides in your favor, it means mercy has spoken louder than memory. It means grace has outranked guilt. It means the narrative is being rewritten by the author himself. What shocks you is not the mistake. What shocks you is that God would still move on your behalf after it. But that is the nature of divine redemption. God does not simply repair, He restores. He does not simply forgive, He reinstates. The enemy wanted your error to become your identity. But God is separating who you are from what you did. You are not your worst decision. You are not your lowest moment. You are not the chapter you are most ashamed of. Heaven sees the full story, not just the fragment that broke you. And here is the deeper revelation. This reversal is not only about correcting the past. It is about positioning you for what is next. If the mistake had not occurred, you would not have learned what you now know. If the failure had not humbled you, you would not be ready for the elevation ahead. Sometimes God allows a fall, not to destroy you, but to refine you. Sometimes he permits the detour because the destination requires a deeper strength. And now that the lesson has been learned, the penalty is being lifted. You may feel unworthy of this word. You may think, if people knew what I did, they wouldn't believe this message. But this is not about people. This is about heaven. And heaven has decided in your favor. The gavel has struck. The verdict has been issued. What you thought was a closed case has just been reopened and resolved with mercy. Before 11:59 p.m., something in your spirit must shift. You must release the self-condemnation. You must let go of the silent punishment you have been placing on yourself. Because when God reverses something, He expects you to walk forward as if it never had authority over you. The chains are not only being unlocked, they are being removed entirely. This is the hour of divine reversal. The mistake that haunted you is about to lose its power. A story that embarrassed you is about to become a testimony. And the heaven that seemed silent has now spoken clearly. You are not finished. You are not disqualified. And what went wrong is about to be turned right. There is a reason this word feels personal. Because the mistake God is speaking about is not small in your memory. It has followed you quietly. It shows up in random moments, when you are alone, when you are about to try again, when something good starts to happen. It whispers, remember what you did. And even though time has passed, the emotional imprint has not fully faded. You have tried to move on, but something inside you still flinches. You still brace yourself as if consequences are waiting around the corner. You still hesitate before stepping into new opportunities because a part of you wonders if you deserve another chance. The enemy has been strategic. He could not erase your calling, so he tried to stain your confidence. He could not cancel your destiny, so he attacked your identity. That mistake became a weapon in his hands. Every time you began to feel hopeful, he replayed the memory. Every time you sensed progress, he reminded you of your failure. He turned one moment into a shadow that seemed longer than your future. And slowly, without realizing it, you began to shrink. You lowered your expectations. You stopped asking boldly. You told yourself, I will just be grateful for whatever I get, because deep down you feared that asking for more might expose you. But what you thought was humility was actually hidden shame. And shame has a way of distorting how you see yourself. You started believing that the mistake disqualified you from certain blessings. You assumed that some doors were meant for other people who had cleaner records, better discipline, fewer regrets. You compared yourself silently and concluded that you had missed your moment. That one decision, that one season, that one lapse in judgment felt like it sealed something permanently. Yet here is the truth heaven is revealing. Your mistake was real, but it was not ultimate. It happened, but it did not rewrite God's covenant over your life. The problem is not that you failed. The problem is that you have been carrying the weight long after you were forgiven. You asked God to forgive you, and He did. Instantly. Completely. Without hesitation. But you have not forgiven yourself. And so you have been living in a prison that no longer has a lock. You have been punishing yourself in subtle ways. You talk yourself out of opportunities. You accept less than you deserve. You tolerate treatment that does not match your value. You over-explain. You over-apologize. You try to prove yourself constantly, as if you are still on trial. But the trial ended. Heaven has decided in your favor. The sentence you feared hath been overturned. And now the only thing holding you back is the memory of something that no longer has authority. Think about how much energy you have spent replaying that moment. Think about the nights you questioned yourself. Think about the prayers that sounded more like self-accusations than conversations with God. The enemy wanted you exhausted. He wanted you distracted by the past so you would not recognize the doors opening in front of you. Because if you ever fully understood that the mistake did not cancel your assignment, you would step forward with a boldness that terrifies darkness. God allowed you to feel the weight for a season, not to destroy you, but to teach you. There were lessons hidden inside that failure. There was wisdom formed through that regret. You now see what you did not see before. You now discern what you once overlooked. And that growth matters. But once the lesson is learned, the shame is no longer necessary. The season of self-condemnation has expired. This is the moment where you make a decision. Will you continue to identify with the mistake, or will you align with the verdict heaven just released? Because both cannot coexist. If heaven has decided in your favor, then your agreement with guilt becomes the only contradiction left. And God is inviting you to let it go. If this word is speaking directly to your situation, do not stay silent. Type reversal in the comments as a declaration that you receive what God is doing. Let it be a sign of agreement. And if you know someone who has been trapped in regret, share this message with them. This could be the confirmation they have been praying for. Also, make sure you are subscribed to this channel, because what God is releasing in this season requires consistent spiritual alignment, and you do not want to miss what He speaks next. Like this video if you believe heaven is shifting something in your favor, because your engagement is more than support. It is a prophetic act of expectation. The mistake that haunted you was never meant to define you. It was a chapter, not the conclusion. And now, as this reversal begins to unfold, you will see that what tried to bury you actually prepared you. The weight you carried is about to lift. The label you accepted is about to fall away. And the confidence you lost is about to be restored. You are not the person you were when that mistake happened. You have grown. You have matured. You have prayed through pain. And heaven has taken all of that into account. The same God who forgave you has now decided to restore you. And when restoration comes from God, it does not merely bring you back to where you were. It positions you higher than before. Close your eyes for a moment and picture this in the spirit. There is a courtroom in heaven. Not a courtroom of chaos, not a courtroom of confusion, but a courtroom of perfect justice. Your name was called forward. The mistake was presented. Every detail was laid bare. Loving hidden. Enough excuse. The accuser spoke loudly, listing your failure, replaying your weakness, insisting that consequences must stand. He argued that you knew better. He argued that you had been warned. He argued that you should not be trusted with another opportunity. And for a season, it felt like his voice was winning. But then the atmosphere shifted. Because when God rises as judge, no accusation can stand unchallenged. The evidence of your mistake was real, but so was the evidence of mercy. The prayers you prayed in private were entered into the record. The tears you cried in repentance were presented before the throne. The growth that followed your fall was examined carefully. Heaven did not only review what you did wrong, heaven reviewed what you did afterward. And that changed everything. The gavel has struck. The verdict has changed you. Where there was once a sentence of delay, there is now a declaration of restoration. Where there was once a shadow over your future, there is now light breaking through. God has spoken over your case. Reversed. Not because the mistake did not matter, but because the blood of mercy mattered more. Not because you earned another chance, but because grace intervened. You must understand something profound. The enemy depends on ongoing accusations. He survives on reminding you of what heaven has already forgiven. But once the verdict is issued, he loses legal ground, and something has happened in the spirit realm that he cannot undo. The ruling has been finalized. The penalty has been lifted. The delay has been recalculated. Heaven has decided in your favor. This is why you have felt tension recently. This is why the memory tried to resurface again. Because before a verdict is announced publicly, there is often resistance privately. Yom sensed that something was shifting. He felt the atmosphere changing. He knew that if this reversal went through, you would step into a level of confidence he could not control. So he tried one last wave of doubt, one last whisper, one last reminder of who you used to be. But he is too late. The decision has already been made. And here's what is even more powerful. This reversal is not only canceling what went wrong, it is restoring what was lost. Opportunities that seemed permanently closed are being reconsidered. Favor that appeared withdrawn is being reinstated. Relationships that fractured because of your mistake are being softened by unseen hands. You may not see it yet, but conversations are shifting. Hearts are being nudged. Circumstances are aligning. Heaven is not just forgiving you, heaven is repositioning you. This is the moment where you stop defending yourself and start walking like someone who has been cleared. You are no longer on trial. You are no longer under review. The case is closed. And when God closes a case, no earthly opinion can reopen it. People may still remember. Some may still reference the past, but their voices do not carry the authority of heaven's ruling. And here is the deeper revelation. The reversal is part of your preparation. If you had never felt the weight of that mistake, you would not recognize the power of this freedom. If you had never experienced regret, you would not fully value redemption. God is not just restoring your position. He is transforming your perspective. You are stepping into your next season wiser, humbler, stronger, and far more discerning. Something even greater is about to unfold from this decision. What you thought was merely about correcting a past error is actually about launching you into a new level of assignment. The mistake tried to reduce you, but the reversal is about to expand you. And what comes next will reveal why this delay was necessary. You will be glad you stayed attentive to this word, because what follows this verdict changes more than your past. It reshapes your future. And now, receive this blessing ritual as a prophetic act of agreement. Type "My verdict is reversed" in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 846 is now activated over your life. As you declare it, you are aligning yourself with heaven's ruling. You are stepping out of accusation and into restoration. You are sealing the verdict with faith. And as this divine courtroom scene settles in your spirit, I need to speak to those who feel this message deeply. When you sow into what God is doing here, you are not supporting a platform. You are advancing a verdict of freedom for countless souls. Scripture declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And this is not distant history. It is God speaking directly into your moment. When you release a seed through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal, you are sowing into a harvest of reversals. I hear in my spirit someone saying, "I want to be part of what heaven is doing here." This is that moment. Do not hesitate when obedience is calling. The PayPal link is in the description, and the QR code may be flashing before you. Step into it as a prophetic act. As you give, may open heavens respond over your household. May the same reversal anointing multiply back into your finances, your family, and your future. Activate your seed now, and let it speak on your behalf before the throne. The verdict has changed you. The courtroom has cleared, and you are walking out not as a defendant, but as someone divinely restored. There is a reason this message carries the urgency of 11:59 p.m. It is not about a literal clock alone. It is about a spiritual threshold. The final minute before midnight represents the closing breath of one season and the silent anticipation of another. It is the thin line between what was and what is about to be. And God is speaking into that space, the space where endings and beginnings touch. Throughout your life, there have been moments that felt like 11:59 p.m. seasons. Times when everything seemed suspended. Times when you did not know if things were about to collapse or finally come together. A tension you feel right before something shifts. That is the atmosphere of 11:59. It is the final stretch. The last heartbeat of an old chapter. A closing argument before the verdict is enforced. Spiritually, God often waits until what feels like the last possible moment. Not to test you cruelly, but to reveal His sovereignty completely. If He moved too early, you might credit coincidence. If He answered too quickly, you might assume it was human intervention. But when He steps in at 11:59, there is no confusion about who did it. There is no debate about the source. The timing itself becomes the testimony. Think about how many breakthroughs in your life came when you were nearly out of strength. How many answers arrived when you had already prepared yourself for disappointment. How many doors opened after you had mentally closed them. God has a pattern of moving at the edge of impossibility. He specializes in final-minute reversals because they display His authority over time itself. Midnight is symbolic. It marks transition. It separates yesterday from tomorrow. And what God is saying in this moment is that your mistake, your regret, your burden, it cannot cross over with you into what comes next. Before the clock strikes 12, something must be released. Something must be understood. Something must be surrendered. 11:59 p.m. is the moment where fear tries one last attempt to speak. It is the moment where doubt whispers, nothing is going to change. It is the moment where your mind tempts you to lower your expectations so you will not be disappointed. But that whisper is not prophetic. It is pressure. And pressure always intensifies right before breakthrough. There is also something deeply merciful about 11:59. It means you were never truly late. It means there was still time. Even when you felt behind. Even when you believed you had missed your opportunity. Even when your mistake convinced you that the season had passed. Heaven operates on divine timing, not human panic. And if this word has reached you before your midnight, that means God has intentionally aligned this message with your transition. The enemy wanted you to believe that the clock had already struck 12. He wanted you to assume the window was closed. He wanted you to accept that what happened in the past permanently disqualified your future. But God is interrupting that narrative. He is showing you that you are not at 12:01. You are at 11:59. There is still a divine pause. There is still a sacred moment. There is still time for reversal. This is why urgency matters. Urgency does not mean anxiety. It means alignment. It means recognizing that you are standing at a doorway. And doorways require decisions. What will you carry into the next day? Will you bring guilt with you? Will you pack regret into your tomorrow? Or will you leave those things behind as the clock resets? In the final minute, clarity becomes sharper. You begin to see what truly matters. Pride falls away. Distractions lose their grip. Your heart becomes more sensitive. And in that sensitivity, God speaks clearly. He reminds you that the mistake did not cancel your assignment. He reassures you that the delay was not denial. He whispers that this next chapter will not resemble the last one. There is also protection in 11:59. God does not allow transitions without preparation. The delay you experienced was not punishment, it was positioning. There were lessons that had to settle into your spirit. There were patterns that needed to break. There were weaknesses that had to surface so they could be strengthened. If the reversal had happened too early, you would have stepped into restoration without readiness. And readiness is what sustains what God restores. So now you stand at the edge, not in fear, not in shame, but in anticipation. The final minute is ticking, not as a threat but as a promise. It signals that the old narrative is ending. It signals that the chapter marked by self-condemnation is closing. It signals that when the new day begins, it will not carry the weight of yesterday's mistake. This is the sacredness of 11:59 p.m. It is the breath before breakthrough, the silence before celebration, the pause before the door opens. And heaven has chosen this moment to declare that what once defined you will not follow you forward. The clock is not your enemy. It is your witness. It is counting down not to loss, but to reversal. And as midnight approaches, you are not bracing for consequence. You are stepping into restoration. There was something hidden inside your mistake that you did not see at first. On the surface, it looked like a simple error. One decision, one moment, one misstep. But beneath it was a trap carefully designed to do more than cause temporary damage. The real danger was never just the action itself. The real danger was what that action would try to convince you about yourself afterward. The enemy understood something about human nature. If he could not stop you before the mistake, he would try to shape you after it. He would attempt to build a narrative around your failure. He would try to persuade you that the mistake was not an event. It was evidence. Evidence that you are careless. Evidence that you are unworthy. Evidence that you cannot be trusted with greater responsibility. Slowly, subtly, the trap was not the fall itself, but the identity shift that threatened to follow. That is how the snare works. First comes the stumble, then comes the shame, then comes the agreement with that shame. And once you agree with it, the trap closes. You begin to say things about yourself that God never said. You begin to accept limits that heaven never imposed. You lower your expectations because deep down you believe you deserve less. The enemy does not need to push you backward if he can convince you to stand still. But here is the truth you must hear clearly. Failure is an event, not an identity. A mistake is a moment, not a definition. You did something wrong, but that does not mean you are wrong. The trap was designed to blur that distinction. It wanted you to merge your action with your identity so completely that you could no longer separate them. That is why the memory feels so heavy. It is not just about what happened. It is about what you started believing afterward. You may not even realize how this belief has shaped your behavior. Think about the opportunities you did not pursue because you feared repeating the past. Think about the relationships you kept at a distance because you did not trust your own judgment. Think about the dreams you quietly placed on hold because you felt disqualified. The mistake became a silent filter through which you viewed every new possibility. But God never intended the lesson to become a life sentence. There is a difference between conviction and condemnation. Conviction corrects you and leads you forward. Condemnation chains you to the past and tells you there is no way back. Conviction is from God. Condemnation is from the enemy. Conviction says, learn from this. Condemnation says, this is who you are. And somewhere along the way, the voice of condemnation became louder in your thoughts than the voice of correction. The trap also worked by isolating you. You felt alone in your failure. You assumed others would not understand. You imagined that if people knew the full story, they would step away. So you carried it privately, and isolation gave the lie room to grow. When you suffer in silence, the narrative becomes distorted. Without light, shame expands. But heaven has been watching differently. God saw the pressure you were under when the mistake happened. He saw the circumstances, the fear, the confusion. He saw the immaturity that has since matured. He saw the weakness that has since strengthened. And while you were busy replaying the moment, God was measuring the growth that followed it. The trap also tried to convince you that restoration would only bring you back to where you were before. But God does not operate in simple restoration. He operates in transformation. The reversal He is initiating is not about returning you to a fragile version of yourself. It is about establishing you on firmer ground than before. The fall exposed cracks in your foundation. The delay allowed those cracks to be repaired. Now what is being built will not collapse under the same pressure. You are not stepping into your future as the same person who made that mistake. You are stepping in with discernment you did not previously possess. You are stepping in with humility that tempers pride. You are stepping in with wisdom that recognizes warning signs earlier. The enemy thought the trap would permanently reduce you. Instead, it refined you. There is also something powerful about this moment. The trap only works as long as you remain unaware of it. Once you see it clearly, its grip weakens. Once you recognize that the real battle was about identity, not just behavior, you begin to reclaim what was stolen. You stop apologizing for existing. You stop shrinking in rooms where you belong. You stop expecting rejection before it even happens. God is dismantling the trap completely. He is not only reversing the consequences of the mistake, He is uprooting the lie that tried to grow from it. And when that lie is removed, confidence returns. Vision returns. Expectation returns. You begin to see yourself not as someone recovering from failure, but as someone prepared for elevation. The mistake was real. The pain was real. The regret was real. But the identity the enemy tried to attach to you was never real. It was a distortion. And distortions cannot survive truth. Now that heaven has decided in your favor, the trap loses its authority. You are no longer defined by the moment that tried to limit you. You are defined by the mercy that lifted you. The snare has been exposed. The lie has been confronted. And the version of you that emerges from this reversal will be stronger, steadier, and far more aware than the one who fell. When God reverses something, He never leaves a void. He does not simply remove what was wrong and leave you standing in emptiness. Whenever heaven takes away shame, it replaces it with honor. Whenever God cancels a loss, He prepares a restoration. Whenever a door closes because of a mistake, another door is crafted with greater precision. And what heaven is releasing instead of your regret will not resemble what you lost. It will surpass it. You may have thought the greatest miracle would be undoing the consequences. But God's plan goes deeper than cancellation. He is not only reversing the mistake, He is releasing something new in its place. What you lost through error will be restored through wisdom. What slipped through your hands in immaturity will return when you are prepared to steward it properly. This is not about going backward. It is about stepping forward into a more refined blessing. Heaven is releasing clarity where confusion once ruled. You remember how clouded your thoughts felt during that season. You questioned everything. You doubted your instincts. You second-guessed your own judgment. But now there is a sharpening happening in your spirit. Decisions that once felt overwhelming will soon feel guided. Conversations that once intimidated you will now feel navigable. God is restoring your discernment. The very area where you stumbled is becoming an area of strength. Heaven is also releasing restored opportunities. There are doors you assumed were permanently sealed. You told yourself that chance is gone. But God is not limited by human timelines. He can bring similar opportunities back around in unexpected ways. He can reopen conversations that seem infinite. He can reintroduce possibilities through new connections. What looked like a missed moment was not your final moment. For some of you, this release will touch your relationships. Words that fractured trust will be softened by humility and growth. Distance that formed because of misunderstanding will shrink through maturity. God knows how to mend what pride once damaged. But this time, the connection will not be built on insecurity. It will be built on awareness and accountability. The restoration will be stronger because you are different. For others, the release will be financial. A decision that cost you resources will be countered by unexpected provision. A loss that felt humiliating will be balanced by new streams of stability. God does not overlook practical needs. He understands the stress that financial mistakes bring, and He is able to position you for increase in ways you cannot predict. The same hands that once mishandled resources will now manage them wisely because the lesson hath been learned. Heaven is also releasing confidence, not arrogance, not reckless boldness, but steady, grounded assurance. The kind that comes from surviving failure and realizing you are still standing. The kind that comes from understanding that your worst moment did not destroy you. This confidence will affect how you speak, how you walk, how you pursue what is in front of you. You will no longer move as someone hoping not to fail. You will move as someone aware of growth. And there is something even more profound being released: acceleration. The delay that followed your mistake was not wasted time. It was preparation. Now that the preparation is complete, movement will feel faster. Doors will open in closer succession. Conversations will advance more quickly. What once felt stagnant will begin to flow. It may even surprise you how swiftly things begin to align once the reversal fully manifests. Do not confuse this acceleration with randomness. It is strategic. God held back certain opportunities because you were not yet ready to sustain them. If they had come earlier, you might have repeated the same patterns. But now, the foundation has been strengthened. The cracks have been repaired. The humility you gained through regret has positioned you to carry more without breaking. Heaven is also releasing peace. The internal battle you have been fighting, the quiet self-criticism, the replaying of the past, will begin to quiet down. You will notice moments where the memory no longer triggers the same sting. You will think about what happened and feel growth instead of shame. That is part of the reversal. Peace is evidence that the verdict has truly shifted in your heart. What God is releasing instead of your mistake is not just compensation. It is transformation. Immaturity replacing immaturity. It is wisdom replacing impulsiveness. It is discernment replacing confusion. It is opportunity replacing loss. It is honor replacing embarrassment. And here is the beautiful part. The new blessing will not carry the same vulnerability as the old one. You will approach it differently. You will protect it differently. You will value it differently. The fall taught you what cares this cuss. The restoration will teach you what responsibility builds. Heaven does not waste pain. Every tear you cried in regret has been recorded. Every prayer you whispered in weakness has been heard. And now the response is being released. What comes next will not mock your past. It will validate your growth. The mistake is being reversed. Yes, But even more than that, something better is being released in its place. And when you step into it, you will realize that what felt like the end was actually preparation for increase. When heaven decides in your favor, it does not remain invisible forever. There are always signs. There are always confirmations that the spiritual shift has begun to manifest in the natural. And one of the reasons God gives signs is not because He needs to prove Himself, but because He knows you need reassurance as you transition. After carrying the weight of a mistake for so long, your heart may hesitate to believe that reversal is truly happening. So He allows indicators, small but undeniable movements, that whisper, "It has begun." The first sign may not be dramatic. It may be internal. You may wake up with an unfamiliar sense of calm. The anxiety that usually greets you in the morning might feel lighter. The memory that once tightened your chest may no longer sting the same way. Peace will arrive before proof. That is often how God works. He adjusts your spirit before He adjusts your circumstances. And when that quiet confidence begins to replace fear, do not dismiss it. That is a sign. Another sign may come through unexpected communication. A message you were not anticipating. A phone call from someone you thought had moved on. A response that carries a tone of openness instead of resistance. When heaven shifts a verdict, hearts can shift too. Conversations that once felt impossible may suddenly become approachable. Walls that stood firm may show cracks. Pay attention to these moments. They are not random. They are evidence of alignment. For some, the sign will come through opportunity, an offer, an invitation, a second chance disguised as something new. It may not look identical to what you lost, but it will carry a familiar thread. You will sense that this is connected to what once slipped away. The difference is that now you are ready. Now you are wise. Now you are positioned to handle it with maturity. When that opportunity appears, do not shrink back out of fear. Recognize it as part of the reversal unfolding. You may also know His favor in subtle places. Situations that once seemed resistant may begin to cooperate. People who were distant may become supportive. Doors that required constant effort to push open may begin to move with less strain. Favor does not always shout. Sometimes it flows quietly, smoothing what used to feel complicated. That ease is not coincidence. It is confirmation. There is another sign that is deeply personal. Your language will begin to change. You will stop speaking about yourself as if you are permanently marked by your mistake. You will catch yourself expecting good outcomes instead of bracing for disappointment. Your prayers will shift from apology to anticipation. Instead of constantly asking for forgiveness for the same past event, you will start thanking God for what is ahead. A shift in speech reflects a shift in belief. Do not be surprised if the sign also includes a test. Not a punishment, but a small opportunity to respond differently than before. You may face a situation similar to the one where you previously stumbled. This time, you will notice your reaction is steadier. You will pause instead of rushing. You will choose wisely instead of impulsively. And in that moment, you will realize how much you have grown. The test will not be there to trip you. It will be there to show you that the old version of you is gone. Sometimes the sign will appear as restoration in areas you did not even connect to the mistake. Perhaps your sleep improves. Perhaps creativity returns. Perhaps motivation that felt drained begins to rise again. The burden you carried affected more than one area of your life. So when it lifts, multiple areas may feel refreshed. The energy you spent on regret will be redirected toward progress. There may also be external confirmations, words from others that echo what you have been hearing in this message. Someone may speak encouragement that feels strangely specific. A sermon, a song, or a conversation may align perfectly with the theme of reversal. When patterns like that emerge, it is not repetition by accident. It is reinforcement by design. God often confirms a shift through multiple channels so your faith can solidify. The most powerful sign, however, will be this: you will begin to see your mistake differently. Instead of cringing at the memory, you will recognize the lesson. Instead of wishing it never happened, you will acknowledge how it shaped you. Gratitude may even begin to surface, not for the pain itself, but for the growth that came through it. When perspective changes, it is a clear indication that healing has taken place. These signs may unfold gradually, where they may arrive suddenly, but they will come. And when they do not attribute them solely to luck or timing. Remember the verdict that was declared. Remember the reversal that was spoken. Remember that heaven has decided in your favor. You are not waiting for something imaginary. You are stepping into something initiated. The signs are not random sparks of hope. They are markers on a path that has already been cleared. As you begin to notice them, allow your faith to strengthen. Allow your confidence to rise. Allow expectation to replace hesitation. The reversal is not just a spiritual idea. It is becoming visible. And the signs you are about to see will confirm that what once felt permanent is now being rewritten. As the clock approaches midnight, something often intensifies in the atmosphere. Not because the reversal is failing, but because it is near. When heaven finalizes a decision in your favor, the enemy rarely retreats quietly. He attempts one last distraction, one last emotional surge, one last whisper of doubt. And if you are not aware, you may misinterpret that resistance as a sign that nothing is changing. But in truth, resistance at this stage is confirmation that something has already shifted. You may notice sudden waves of insecurity. Thoughts you believe you had overcome may resurface with unusual force. The memory of your mistake may feel vivid again, almost as if it happened yesterday. This is not regression. This is agitation. When a legal ground is lost in the spirit, the accuser tries to provoke fear before the full manifestation of freedom arrives. He hopes you will agree with the doubt and delay your own breakthrough. There may also be external tension, small misunderstandings, unexpected inconveniences, minor conflicts that seem strangely timed. These are not random. They are attempts to pull your focus away from what God is completing. If your attention shifts back to frustration and self-blame, you may unconsciously reopen doors that heaven has already closed. That is why awareness is crucial in this hour. The enemy's final attempt often targets your emotions. He knows you are more vulnerable when you feel overwhelmed. So he amplifies feelings. He magnifies minor issues. He tries to convince you that the peace you sensed earlier was temporary. But understand this clearly: emotional turbulence does not cancel a divine verdict. Feelings fluctuate. God's decisions do not. You must anchor yourself in what has already been spoken. Heaven has decided in your favor. That ruling was not conditional upon your mood. It was not dependent on your perfect performance in the final minutes. It was issued because grace prevailed. And once grace prevails, accusation loses authority. His last attempt may also look like temptation, a subtle invitation to repeat the same pattern that led to your mistake. The circumstances may appear familiar. The pressure may resemble the past. But this time, you will feel a pause inside you. A warning. A strength that was not there before. That pause is growth. That awareness is transformation. The enemy may present the same trap, but you are no longer the same person. Do not interpret the reappearance of old patterns as failure. Interpret it as exposure. God is allowing you to see clearly what once caught you unaware. And when you choose differently in this final stretch, it seals the reversal in a powerful way. Your obedience now is not about earning restoration. It is about demonstrating readiness for it. There is also something significant about midnight itself. Midnight represents transition. It is the dividing line between what was and what will be. And right before transition, pressure peaks. But pressure at the edge of breakthrough is not a sign to retreat. It is a signal to stand firm. When doubt whispers, answer it with truth. When fear rises, counter it with remembrance. When insecurity knocks, remind yourself that the verdict has already changed. You may even feel an unusual urgency in your spirit tonight. A sense that something is concluding. A sense that a chapter is closing quietly. Do not rush through this moment. Reflect. Release. Let go of any remaining self-condemnation. Forgive yourself fully. Align your thoughts with what God has declared. This alignment weakens the enemy's last attempt more than any argument ever could. And here is the deeper encouragement. The intensity you feel now is temporary. The breakthrough that follows is lasting. What tries to shake you in this final hour will not follow you into the next season. The enemy's voice grows loudest when his influence is fading. That noise is not power. It is desperation. Hold steady in this moment, because what happens at the stroke of midnight will not mirror what happened before. This time, you are crossing over with clarity. This time, you are stepping forward without shame attached to your name. This time, the mistake remains behind as you enter a new beginning. You will be grateful you recognized this final attempt for what it is. What unfolds after this resistance passes will confirm everything that has been spoken. The shift will feel undeniable. The peace will feel deeper. The confidence will feel settled. And you will look back at this hour not as a moment of fear, but as the final push before restoration manifested. Now receive this blessing ritual as a seal over your transition. Type "I cross over free" in the comments if you are ready to leave the mistake behind. Blessing code 912 is now activated over your life. As you declare it, you are stepping across the threshold with faith. You are closing the door on accusation and opening the door to restoration. And as this final resistance fades, I want to speak to those who feel called to move with this moment. When you sow into this mission through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal, you are not giving to a channel. You are fueling a river of restoration that reaches souls standing at their own midnight. The word says that when you sow beside many waters, your harvest will return in due season. I sense someone saying, "I want my seed to be part of this reversal." This is that prophetic response. The PayPal link is waiting in the description, and the QR code may be before you. Step into it as an act of obedience, not obligation. As you release your seed, may God release acceleration over your life. May your generosity become a testimony of open heavens. Activate your giving now, and let it echo into your next season. The enemy's last attempt is fading. Midnight is approaching, and you are stepping forward, not as someone defeated, but as someone divinely restored. Now that the verdict has changed and midnight is at the door, there is a question that matters deeply. How do you position yourself for the reversal to fully manifest? Because while God has decided in your favor, alignment is what allows you to step into what He has released. Positioning is not about striving. It is about agreement. It is about making sure your heart, your thoughts, and your actions are no longer contradicting what heaven has already declared. The first position is repentance without condemnation. Repentance is not humiliation. It is realignment. It is looking at the mistake clearly, acknowledging it without excuses, and then turning away from the pattern completely. But once you have turned, you do not keep looking back. You do not drag guilt forward as proof of sincerity. True repentance trusts that God's forgiveness is complete. Position yourself by accepting that what has been forgiven no longer defines you. The second position is gratitude in advance. This may feel unnatural at first, especially if you have been carrying regret for a long time. But gratitude shifts your posture from fear to expectation. Instead of bracing for consequences, you begin thanking God for restoration. Instead of replaying what went wrong, you start anticipating what will go right. Gratitude signals faith. It tells heaven that you believe the reversal is not theoretical. It is active. The third position is disciplined speech. Your words must align with the verdict. If heaven has decided in your favor, your language cannot remain negative about your future. Pay attention to how you speak about yourself. Stop saying, "I always mess things up." Stop predicting failure before it happens. Stop identifying with the version of you that made the mistake. Speak as someone who has been restored. Speak as someone who has learned. Speak as someone who expects growth. Positioning also requires obedience in small steps. The reversal may not appear all at once in dramatic form. It may begin with subtle instructions. Apologize where necessary. Apply again. Have that conversation. Revisit that opportunity. When God opens a door, He often pairs it with an action. Do not let fear delay your response. Even a small step taken in faith confirms that you are ready to walk into what He has prepared. Another important posture is humility. Restoration is powerful, but it must be stewarded carefully. The mistake you made taught you something. Do not forget that lesson once things improve. Stay aware. Stay prayerful. Stay grounded. Humility protects what pride once endangered. When God restores you, walk forward with gratitude, not entitlement. There is also a need to release control. Sometimes we try to manage the outcome because we fear repeating the past. But positioning yourself means trusting God's process fully. You cannot force restoration. You cannot manipulate timing. Your responsibility is alignment. God's responsibility is manifestation. When you stop trying to engineer every detail, you create space for divine orchestration. Pay attention to your environment as well. Positioning may require distancing yourself from influences that contributed to the original mistake. Not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. If certain conversations, habits, or relationships pulled you off course before, be intentional about protecting your growth now. Restoration thrives in healthy soil. And perhaps most importantly, position yourself through belief. Believe that you are worthy of what God is restoring, not because of perfection, but because of grace. Believe that the reversal is real. Believe that heaven does not issue empty declarations. Doubt will try to creep in, especially if circumstances do not change immediately. But faith holds steady even when visible proof is still forming. If this message is aligning with your spirit, take a moment to engage with it actively. Comment, "I receive my reversal," as a declaration of agreement. Let your words become a marker of faith. Share this message with someone who may be standing at their own 11:59 p.m. moment. And make sure you are subscribed to this channel so you remain connected to the words God is releasing in this season. Like this video as an act of expectation, because your engagement is not just interaction, it is alignment with what heaven is doing. Positioning yourself is not complicated. It is intentional. is choosing to think differently, speak differently, act differently. It is refusing to carry shame into a season marked by restoration. It is stepping forward with both humility and confidence, aware of what you learned and hopeful about what is ahead. You are not trying to convince God to move. He has already decided. You are simply preparing yourself to receive what hath been approved. As midnight passes and the new season unfolds, you will not be scrambling. You will be ready. Ready to walk through open doors. Ready to steward renewed opportunities. Ready to live without the weight that once slowed you down. The reversal is not just coming to you. It is coming for you. And your positioning today determines how smoothly you step into it tomorrow. If you ever question whether God truly reverses mistakes, you only need to look at the patterns woven throughout Scripture. The Bible is not a collection of perfect people. It is a testimony of redeemed ones. Again and again, God steps into situations marked by failure, regret, or injustice, and He turns them in a direction no one expected. The pattern is clear. What appears final to humans is often only the setup for divine reversal. Consider Joseph, betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. At multiple points, his story looked ruined beyond repair. If anyone could have believed that a mistake, his youthful pride, his early arrogance, had cost him everything, it was Joseph. But what seemed like a downward spiral was actually a hidden preparation. The prison was not the end. It was a pathway. In a single divine shift, he moved from confinement to command. The same hands that were chained were later entrusted with authority. That is reversal. Think about Job. He lost wealth, family, health, and reputation in a season that felt merciless. His suffering was public. His confusion was deep. His friends even suggested that hidden mistakes must have caused his collapse. Yet the story did not conclude in loss. God restored him, not merely to his previous state, but with double what he had before. The pain was real. The devastation was undeniable. But the ending was restoration beyond expectation. That is reversal. Look at Peter. You walked closely with Jesus, witnessed miracles, declared bold loyalty, and then denied him 3 times. In Peter's mind, that mistake must have felt permanent. You wept bitterly. He returned to fishing, perhaps assuming his calling had ended. But the denial did not cancel his destiny. After the resurrection, Jesus restored him publicly and entrusted him with leadership. The very mouth that denied became the mouth that preached boldly. The failure did not define him. The restoration did. That is reversal. Consider Esther, an orphan in a foreign land, placed into a palace through circumstances she did not control. At first, her position may have seemed fragile but uncertain. But when a decree threatened her people, what looked like vulnerability became influence. The situation that could have ended in destruction was overturned. The decree meant for harm was reversed into protection and honor. That is reversal. These stories are not isolated incidents. They reveal a consistent nature of God. He does not ignore mistakes, but He does not allow them to have the final word. He disciplines, He teaches, He refines, but He also restores. When heaven decides in someone's favor, no human decision, no past error, and no dark season can permanently block that verdict. And here is why this matters for you right now. The same God who reversed Joseph's imprisonment, Job's suffering, Peter's denial, and Esther's crisis has not changed. His character remains constant. If He did it then, He can do it now. The mistake you made may feel deeply personal. uniquely complicated. But from heaven's perspective, it is not beyond redemption. It is not outside the pattern of restoration. There is also something else in these stories. The reversal often led to greater impact than the original position. Joseph did not return to the pit, he rose to leadership. Job did not merely recover, he increased. Peter did not return quietly, he became foundational. Esther did not fade into obscurity, she became instrumental in saving a nation. God's reversals are not minimal adjustments. They are strategic elevations. This is important because sometimes you imagine restoration as simply returning to where you were before the mistake. But God may be planning something higher. The delay you endured, the humility you learned, the growth you gained, all of it positions you for a level of responsibility you were not previously ready to carry. Another pattern in these reversals is timing. None of these figures experienced immediate turnaround. There were seasons of waiting, uncertainty, and refinement. But when the shift came, it was undeniable. The same will be true for you. The reversal may not have manifested instantly in visible form, but when it does, you will recognize it clearly. The shift will not be subtle confusion. It will be unmistakable alignment. The biblical pattern also teaches endurance. Every person who experienced reversal had to remain steady through the process. Joseph remained faithful in prison. Job continued seeking God despite confusion. Peter returned to obedience even after failure. Esther stepped forward in courage despite risk. Reversal is not passive. It often requires faithful positioning until the appointed moment arrives. Your story is being woven into that same pattern. A mistake you made is not a unique disqualification. It is part of a larger testimony of redemption. Heaven has decided in your favor, not because you are flawless, but because God is faithful. When you feel doubt rising, remember these patterns. When you question whether your situation can truly change, recall that Scripture is filled with examples of what seemed impossible becoming reality. The reversal you are stepping into is not unprecedented. It is consistent with the nature of the God you serve. Your story is not ending in regret. It is aligning with restoration. And just as those before you witnessed their darkest moments transform into testimonies, you too will look back at this season and recognize it as the turning point, not the conclusion. When the reversal finally manifests, when the door opens, when the peace settles, when the opportunity returns, what happens next matters more than you realize. Because restoration is not just about receiving, it is about stewarding. It is about walking wisely in what God has rebuilt. The mistake may be reversed, but the responsibility that follows is sacred. The first thing that happens after reversal is clarity. You begin to see how close you were to allowing regret to shape your destiny permanently. You recognize how subtle the trap was, and with that clarity comes gratitude. Not a shallow gratitude, but a deep awareness that you were preserved, that you were given another chance not because you demanded it, but because mercy intervened. This gratitude becomes a protective shield. It guards you from arrogance. It reminds you how dependent you are on God's guidance. The second thing that happens is opportunity. Restoration rarely leaves you idle. Once God reinstates you, He entrusts you again. And sometimes that entrustment feels intimidating. You may think, what if I fail again? But this fear must not control you. The growth you gained through your mistake has prepared you differently this time. You are not stepping into opportunity as the same person who once stumbled. You are stepping in with awareness. After reversal, humility must remain at the center. The danger after restoration is forgetting the lesson. When things improve, It is easy to relax spiritually. It is easy to assume that strength alone will sustain you. But humility keeps you attentive. It keeps you prayerful. It keeps you from drifting back into patterns that once led to regret. Humility says, I remember what I learned, and that remembrance strengthens your future. There is also a shift in how you relate to others. When you have experienced reversal, you become less judgmental. You understand failure differently. You recognize how quickly someone can stumble under pressure. And instead of condemning others for their mistakes, you extend compassion. Your story becomes a bridge for someone else's healing. The shame you once carried transforms into empathy. Another important reality after reversal is vigilance. Not paranoia, but awareness. You know the areas where you are vulnerable. You know the triggers that once influenced your decisions. And instead of pretending those weaknesses no longer exist, you manage them wisely. You set boundaries. You seek accountability. You remain teachable. Reversal does not erase human limitation, but it empowers you to handle it responsibly. You will also notice increased influence. People are drawn to authenticity. When others see that you overcame a mistake rather than being destroyed by it, they pay attention. Your testimony carries weight because it is real. And this influence is not for personal glory, it is for purpose. God often uses restored individuals to speak hope into situations where others feel trapped. Your journey equips you to guide someone else through theirs. There may be moments when the memory of your mistake resurfaces, even after reversal, but it will feel different. It will not carry shame, it will carry perspective. Instead of triggering regret, it will remind you of how far you have come. And in those moments, you will realize that the very thing that once embarrassed you is now part of your strength. Stewardship also involves gratitude expressed consistently. Continue thanking God not just when things improve, but as they stabilize. Continue acknowledging His role in your restoration. This posture keeps your heart aligned. It prevents entitlement from creeping in. It reminds you that what you have now is a gift, not a guarantee. And perhaps the most beautiful part of what happens after reversal is peace. Not the temporary calm that depends on circumstances, but a deeper assurance rooted in experience. You now know that even if you stumble again in the future, God's mercy remains accessible. That confidence does not encourage recklessness, it encourages trust. It frees you from living in constant fear of failure. The reversal also reshaped your identity. You no longer see yourself as someone recovering from a mistake. You see yourself as someone refined by a lesson. That shift changes how you pursue your calling. You move forward with courage, but also with caution. You dream boldly, but you build carefully. And as time passes, you will begin to understand something profound. The mistake that once felt like a threat to your destiny was actually a turning point in it. Without it, you may have lacked the depth you now carry. Without it, you may not have developed the resilience you now possess. What was meant to reduce you ultimately refined you. So after the reversal, walk forward intentionally. Guard what God restores. Remain humble. Stay vigilant. Extend compassion. And allow your story to become a source of strength for others. The chapter marked by regret has closed. The chapter marked by restoration is unfolding. And what you do in this new season will echo far beyond the mistake that once threatened to define you. We have walked through the courtroom of heaven. We have stood at 11:59 p.m. We have felt the resistance, recognized the trap, seen the signs, and understood the positioning. And now, as this message closes, one truth stands unshaken above everything else. Heaven has decided in your favor. Not maybe, Not someday, not if you earn it. It hath been decided. The mistake you made was real, but it was never greater than God's mercy. The regret you carry was heavy, but it was never stronger than His grace. The delay you experienced was painful, but it was never proof of rejection. What you interpreted as the end was actually the edge of transformation. And now you are stepping into a chapter that will not resemble the one you feared. This is your transition moment. Midnight has passed in the spirit. The old narrative has expired. The label that tried to cling to your name has lost its authority. The accusation that echoed in your thoughts has been silenced. The gavel struck, and the verdict was clear, restored, redeemed, reinstated. There will be days ahead when you look back at this season and barely recognize yourself. You will remember how deeply the mistake once defined your thinking. You will recall how cautious you were, how hesitant, how unsure. And you will realize that what changed everything was not your perfection. It was your surrender. It was the moment you stopped arguing with grace and started receiving it. Heaven's decision over your life is not fragile. It does not fluctuate with human opinion. It is not undone by rumors, memories, or past records. When God reverses something, He does it with authority. And when He restores someone, He does it with intention. You are not leaving this message as someone trying to fix the past. You are leaving as someone stepping into a future already cleared. The weight is lifting. The atmosphere is shifting. The heaviness that followed you quietly is dissolving. And here is the assurance you must carry. This reversal is not temporary. It is not a brief emotional high. It is a structural shift in your life. God is not patching a wound. He is rebuilding a foundation. He is not covering a mistake. He is transforming it into testimony. From this day forward, walk differently. When opportunity knocks, answer without shrieking. When favor appears, receive it without suspicion. When peace fills your heart, do not question whether you deserve it. Heaven has decided in your favor. The chapter of regret has ended. The chapter of restoration has begun. And what awaits you will not mock your past, it will magnify your growth. Now receive this final blessing ritual as a seal over everything that has been spoken. Type "Heaven had decided" for me in the comments if you receive this word. Blessing code 1046 is now activated over your life. As you declare it, you are aligning fully with the new season. You are closing the door on shame and stepping boldly into restoration. And as this message concludes, I speak to those who feel the fire of this word stirring in their spirit. When you sow into this mission through super thanks, membership, or PayPal, you are not supporting a channel. You are fueling a movement of reversal for souls standing at their own midnight hour. The Lord says, as you give, it shall be given back to you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. This is not theory. This is a living promise spoken over your obedience. I sense someone saying, I want my seed to carry this same restoration anointing. Then act on it now. The PayPal link is in the description, and the QR code may be before you. Move in faith, not hesitation. As you release your seed, may open heavens respond over your household. May favor locate you. May acceleration follow you. Activate your giving now, and let your obedience echo into eternity. You are not who you were when this message began. You are someone marked by mercy, someone covered by grace, someone positioned for restoration. The mistake is reversed. The verdict is final. Heaven has decided in your favor. This is your new beginning.